This week on Arts Insight, extraordinary art for Easter.
The egg is a symbol of birth. The very egg itself is something that's powerful.
A vending machine that dispenses works of art.
I just like putting it out there, but quietly, so that when people come upon it, it's more delightful.
Contemporary crochet creations.
I want to kind of redefine how people see, crochet in their lives.
The life of Maya Angelou.
What you get is you get a historical perspective of this country that we haven't had before. It makes her story very unique.
And a boutique hotel with walls and walls of art.
When you walk into the lobby, you have this beautiful lobby, and there's a 30-foot wall that opens up into the second floor atrium.
I'm Ernie Manous, and it's time to get Arts Insight. Welcome to Arts Insight. Today, we're at Levy Park in the Upper Kirby District. This area has just undergone a multi-million-dollar renovation, and we're going to show you around in just a little bit and show you what you can expect. But first, we're going to visit with a Houston artist who has taken an Easter tradition and is turning it into a fine art.
The egg is a symbol of birth. The very egg itself is something that's powerful. These were used as talisman when the mind was predisposed towards magical thinking. A pisanka, or pisanki, plural, is a Ukrainian Easter egg. I think the tradition is syncretic. It existed as an archetype and as a powerful force that was folded into the spiritual development of the Ukrainian people and their culture. I think I'm part of an unbroken tradition, and I'm not an anomaly being a man making pisanki that's traditionally handed down from grandmother to mother to daughter and maintained by women. And I think women maintain culture. I think they're the ones who keep things together. I think it's wonderful that my wife and daughter are interested. I went to school, and on holidays my mom would come into the class and teach the class how to make pisanki, and I was part of that. So this is where I started as a real little kid, and I came back around to it and realized that there was something in this that was not being recognized as a fine art and was really hugely important. Basically, these symbols are ancient, and their power is potent and ancient. The dyes are natural dyes, and they're not permanent. They're strong, but they do fade, in 100 years. The wax is beeswax, which is natural, and the way that one starts is by using the beeswax in a little stylus, a stick with a little copper funnel. We hold it in a candle to get it hot and keep the wax at a certain temperature. The egg starts with a point. The line follows the point, and it divides an egg on meridians, and those meridians set up the pattern which is going to emerge. I tend to favor star or sunbursts and flowers as a sort of a point, because they start at a central point and they radiate outwards. And for me, this is like the description of creation. After the artist decides what they want to be white, because it's masked by the wax, the egg goes into the yellow dye. And when the yellow is finished, the artist draws on that with wax and covers what the artist wants to stay yellow. And then it goes into orange, then it goes into red, then it goes into the next color, usually black. And when it's finished, It's held up to a candle, the wax is removed, and the egg is revealed. Certain colors have certain appeals and certain emotional content. Yellow seems to be a color for joy. Red seems to be a color for love or blood. Black allows light to be possible and color to be possible, but it also reminds us of our mortality. I think my biggest challenge is to not get ahead of myself and be distracted by the possibilities and really try to get each step done. What I really like is not having any idea about what I'm going to do and then trusting that the lines and the geometry and the automatic sort of way to work is going to point towards an aha moment. I say, this is what it wants to be. Art to me is life. Without it, life doesn't have meaning.
To find out more, check out the Ukrainian American Cultural Club of Houston's Facebook page. Okay, we are here at Levy Park, kind of an oasis in the middle of the city over here on Upper Kirby. And to tell us all about the park and how it came to be is the park director, Doug Overman. Hello, Doug.
Hey, Ernie.
Okay, how much did this thing cost us?
This amazing project cost $15 million, the renovation. But it's a renovation, I should stress, to a previously existing City of Houston park. Levy Park, the land was given to the city in 1941 by Leon Levy, and was an active community park for many, many years. A little tucked away, not very well known outside of Upper Kirby, but the Upper Kirby Redevelopment Authority saw the opportunity to do something more with the park.
I call it thing because it's more, like you said, there was a park here. This is like a fantasy playground for kids in a sense.
It is, and I mean, we're standing right now in the play area of the park, which is the single largest feature of our 6-acre park. And it is attracting families. So we've got this extraordinary stage with a lawn, an event lawn that'll accommodate up to 3,000 people standing. We've got a second lawn we call our activity lawn, and that's a place where a lot of kids play and families play. We've got big foam blocks that kids can build forts with. We've got a putting green. We've got ping pong and petanque. We have other lawn games, cornhole. We also have a dog park with 2 sections, one for small dogs and one for large dogs.
Okay, we are an art show. Talk a little about the design and the aesthetic of the park.
I think the way the pavilion as a structure kind of speaks to the design of the landscape is something interesting to look at. And the structure behind us, we call the overlook. The overlook gets you up into the oak canopy, and that was the original intention, and it turned into this really beautiful, whimsical, flowing structure that allows people to do exactly what they want to do when they see these 65-year-old live oaks. They want to get up in them.
Well, I'll let you get back to running all of this, and you have a 3-year-old?
I do have a 3-year-old.
Thinks this is their park, right?
She thinks it's awesome. She came in before we opened and gave it the thumbs up, so we got expert approval.
To find out more about the park, where can people go?
LevyParkHouston.org.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Thank you, Ernie.
Up next, a printmaker and book artist from Minneapolis has found a unique way to get her work into the hands of the public.
My training is in books. I love making books. It is really important to make things by hand, really start to finish. I think, meticulously crafting things and really creating the experience and what you hand off to someone is important to me as an artist. I feel like I want to be very involved in every step, or as much as I can be, because I feel like when you work on something, you're putting yourself into it and you're putting feeling into it time and energy and emotion. And it's nice. It's a way for me to sort of give little gifts and bundles of hopefully kind of like happiness, pleasant little surprises to the world. With my work, I often find myself working as though I'm a one-person assembly line. I really don't earn much money at it. It takes a lot of time and work. It's time intensive, it's exhausting, but I really do like the idea of spreading art quietly and insidiously just all over the place. That's the motivation for me to keep doing it. I just like putting it out there, but quietly, so that when people come upon it, it's more delightful. I began the Unbending project in 2012. It coincided with a residency I had at the High Point Center for Printmaking. I buy old secondhand vending machines and I sort of clean them up. I make sure they work. I put new branding on it, so they are now art vending machines instead of condom vending machines or snack vending machines or tampon vending machines or whatever they were in their former life. And then I make art to dispense out of them, and the art is often thematically related to the machine itself. This is one of my unbending machines. I call it the smut machine because it's a former condom vending machine like you would find in, say, a kind of a chintzy gas station or a bar maybe. And all the art that comes out of the smut machines has to do with love or romance or human sexuality or just anything. It's an opportunity to speak frankly, speak openly, be kind of silly and fun. And currently, it's dispensing 2 different little books that are a facsimile of a series of text messages, a one-sided conversation from a person in love who isn't really responding to their advances, and they get slowly crazier and crazier and a little more obsessive and desperate. Like most of my work, something that you can decide whether or not you take it seriously. It's either pretty funny, a little joke, a little one-liner, or it's kind of serious and deep. The Modest Manual for Living does seem to be just kind of a perennial favorite. It's one that is, on the one hand, sort of a little clever one-liner because on the inside, all of the pages just say inhale and exhale, which is all you really have to do to live. The term vending has some very commercial implications, and it comes with this idea of, profit and loss and margins and making sure you earn more money than you spend. And honestly, with this project, I am not earning more money than I spend. So it's really an uncapitalistic, unvending project. It is an art for art's sake sort of thing.
To find out more, you can visit CaitlinHasAWebsite.com. Up next, a woman in Ohio has found a way to turn strands of yarn into whimsical creations.
I have to make sure I keep my count. Like whenever I'm crocheting, I count like every row. I think playful and practical really help to define kind of the things that I like to make and especially the things that I like to share with others. If I could, I would love to teach everyone how to do this. I am the owner of TL Yarn Crafts. It's a crochet, home goods, and accessories business. I run primarily on Etsy, but I do a lot of craft shows around the holidays. I learned crochet when I was 13 years old. I was bored to tears over summer break, and I was driving my mother insane. And she was looking for something to kind of keep me busy, keep me occupied. And she grabbed a crochet hook and some yarn out of her stash, and she taught me how to make a granny square. And she told me, keep going, and it'll turn into a blanket. And I worked on that thing all summer. But I just remember at the time, just watching my hands make something that didn't exist before. It was kind of fascinating for such a young person, and I've been doing it ever since. I'm making an Albert. So he is going to ultimately be an owl, about ornament size. So perfect for like a Christmas tree or hanging up in your car, or there's always one owl lover in the family who can find something to do with an owl ornament. Is by far one of my favorite things to make. This is a wool blend. So if something happens to Albert, he falls in a puddle or baby gets applesauce on him, he can be popped in the washing machine. Really easy to take care of. I want people, especially for the first time, to experience crochet in a very simple and straightforward way. So if I can make it approachable, I try my best to do that. I keep a project bag with me everywhere I go, and I mean, if I'm at the doctor's office, if I'm waiting in the drive-thru too long, I'm pulling out one of my crochet projects. Wish I could just teach the world to love crochet. I wish I could, yeah. I mean, once you get your hands into it and you really experience, it's just fascinating. It's very exciting. It's not just your grandma or your aunt who made that kind of itchy sweater. It's something that is, that is contemporary and modern and that you can infuse into your own style. I will crochet all day, every day for the rest of my life. I want to kind of redefine how people see, crochet in their lives.
Just go to tlyarncrafts.com to learn more. As a singer, dancer, activist, poet, and writer, Dr. Maya Angelou inspired generations with lyrical modern thought that pushed boundaries. There's a new feature-length documentary of her life on American Masters called Maya Angelou and Still I Rise.
As a young person reading I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings became one of those books that Black children didn't have. Prior to that, we didn't hear a little girl's story. So her story at that point in time, the late 60s, really hit the scene and just flourished and made reading and inclusion and diversity in characters something that I don't think we'd seen before.
I had always been a fan of Maya Angelou for years. I remember reading I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and being deeply moved by that story that she told of growing up in the Jim Crow South in Arkansas, the love she had for her grandmother, the difficulty she had when she was raped when she was 7, the honesty of that book. Somewhere along the way I was kind of thinking about her, musing about Maya Angelou, and I started to realize that I'd never heard of a film being made about her, so I did some research, and sure enough, nobody had ever made that film. It was amazing to me.
The reason why Maya Angelou's story is so important is because history, by and large, has not been written by Black women. They've also been left out of the history books. Her birth in the Jim Crow South in 1928 to the Great Migration in St. Louis in the 30s, and with Porgy and Bess, her traveling with the State Department, to the women's movement, to the arts movement, and working with both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, what you get is you get a historical perspective of this country that we haven't had before. It makes her story very unique.
Guy Johnson, who is Maya Angelou's son, is, in my opinion, one of the most compelling people in the film. He's a tremendous storyteller. He also has an amazing wry sense of humor. Through his story, really, he's able to walk us through her story because he grew up living with her. She raised him as a single parent, and he talks about the struggles they went through. He also talks about the joy of things that they went through. He describes in detail how Maya Angelou met James Baldwin and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and other people like that. So his story is central to the film.
Working on film, television, broadcasts for the past 30 years, I've never seen anyone go back into time and drop you into that space where they're telling the story. She gave 100% of herself. She remembered. I think it was cathartic for her. You could feel the story, you could feel the emotion, and you could feel the truth in her words.
People often remark to us after seeing the film how uncanny the film is in terms of how it's relevant to what's happening today with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the gulf that we have in our society. And Maya Angelou was a person who stood for bringing people together, bridging divides, getting past our prejudices and our bigotry. And she was always interested in forgiveness and reconciliation. And these are kind of themes, I think, that are very important. I think that's why people really relate to the film as a contemporary film, but also as a historical document.
We start the film with these words: "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated."
That in fact it may be necessary to encounter defeats so we can know who the hell we are.
That's how life is. We have one defeat after another in a sense, but still we rise, still we go beyond those defeats, and we must not be defeated.
To learn more, visit pbs.org/WNET/American Masters. And finally tonight, a group of artists worked with master printmakers to create a range of limited edition art pieces for a boutique hotel in Columbus.
The hotel is a boutique hotel with an art focus in the Short North in Columbus, and it's a very personal project. The Joseph, so the Joseph is Ron Pizzuto's father's name. So right there, it's a very personal story, and they take it all with their own taste and their own interests, and this is a project of the heart. So both Ron and Joel have really thrown themselves into every detail, which is really where the art came in, because Ron has been a collector for 40 years and Joel is a budding collector. And so art was part of the discussion, meeting with the designers and the architects from the beginning. When you walk into the lobby, you have this beautiful lobby, and there's a 30-foot wall that opens up into the second floor atrium. So the first, breath you have in the hotel is the wow of that big art wall. Ron really selected work by Cause. He commissioned Cause, who is like an amazing, perfect artist for this project because he has such a crossover. He's both an exhibiting artist, shows with galleries around the world. The Ohio Portfolio Program was born out of an idea inspired by Ron Pizzuto. We invited artists to submit proposals to make limited edition screen prints or other edition prints and photographs for the rooms.
Rebecca, the curator of Ron's collection, asked me if I wanted to submit a proposal. And so I said, sure, sounds great.
After they narrowed down the 20 or so artists, they invited us to all get together at Ron Pizzuto's house.
And that apartment has one of the most beautiful art installations in the world, I think.
We were then asked, as this group of 20, to create a proposal for the hotel, and it was totally open. You could come up with absolutely anything.
We worked with Glenn Baldridge, Fourth Estate, and Axel Studios in Brooklyn, and we sent the artists to Brooklyn to work with these master printmakers.
I am primarily a painter, so what I did was I created 2 drawings that I would have eventually painted, but instead I thought about it as a little more graphic and a little more simple. And then I thought I would like to create a raised surface on this one. Would it be possible to emboss this one? You know, as artists, we sit in our studio and we do the same thing over and over again because it's comfortable or it's what we know. So it's interesting to kind of like, how might this work?
And so they had this great collaborative spirit working with high-end master printers, creating these beautiful screen prints. So the quality is remarkable. Ron has been in the Columbus community, but hasn't necessarily as a collector been focused solely on Columbus artists. But he was asked, I believe, to be a juror for the Ohio Art League for one of their juried exhibitions, and was really blown away by the quality of the work. There's an appetite for this, and there's an appetite for real art by real people, and not just, you know, white noise or something that you will see. And there are other art hotels around the country and of all budgets. This one is unique in every sense and represents our community as well. I work with a lot of contractors and construction, Pizzuti development companies are a number of construction people, and one of the head of construction asked me, do you think people will really care? And I said, absolutely. You know, it's just, it gives the space an energy, a feel. You don't have to be, you don't even have to notice or know who any of the artists are or care who any of the artists are, but when you walk in, there's an energy and a brightness, and there's a depth to the art that if you are interested, they're not easy pieces. They're difficult works. They're things that'll make you think and smile if you open yourself up to that.
To find out more, visit lemeridiancolumbus.com. From Levy Park and the Upper Kirby District, that does it for this edition of Arts Insight. For all of us at Houston Public Media, thanks for watching and have a great week.